Welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Neeru Tandon, Professor of English, VSSD College, Kanpur. In this paper of English language teaching, known as ELT, we are discussing language skills. In this particular module, I am going to talk about the fourth language skill, that is writing. We all know that the other three skills, L for listening, S for speaking, R for reading, and then W for writing. How important they are to have that particular skill, that is the language skill. Now, what Francis Bacon had said, I will like to quote that, reading maketh a full man, conference a ready man, and writing an exact man. So that is, he has differentiated that how these language skills can benefit you, can shape you or your personality in a proper way. Reading adds perfection to a man's personality, howsoever good you may be. But if you are not a well-read person, then the problems will be there. You cannot just claim that you are a complete person. So reading maketh you a full man. When you read, your personality is developed. You can claim that yes, I am capable of going or talking to anywhere, or my knowledge is extended. When you conference, when you talk to other people, you get the capability, develop, nurture the capability of being a good speaker. Then finally, to be an exact man, you must have the control over writing skills. So let us talk about writing skills. Writing is the last dominion of second language learning to acquire the mastery. One of the main goals of ESL students is to learn how to produce a well thought out piece of writing. Everybody wants to be a writer. Everybody loves writers. Writers still are being respected in every society. But whenever we talk of communication skills or four great skills in humans, writing and speaking skills, they appear to be fundamental. To master them is especially challenging for English language learners, particularly in the domain of writing. Writing has been identified as one of the most essential skills because the world has become so text-oriented. People will forget what you have spoken, but they will never forget what you have written. So that becomes the part of your personality, the identification mark of your personality, whatever you have written. So what are the objectives of this particular module? That by the end of the module, a student should be aware of what is writing, what is the importance of writing a skill in teaching and learning, the second language, of course, then the different forms of writing and strategies how to improve writing skills. Now, the first step, what is writing? Writing can be said to be the act of forming the symbols. I know A, B, C, D, but how to arrange them to produce the meaningful sentences, that is writing. Making marks on flat surface of some kind, this language may be Aba, Hindi will come, AB, English will come, or Alif Bete, Urdu will come. In the same way, different marks will just come out in the form of a language. Writing is a process where symbols have to be arranged according to a certain conventions to form words. Out of our own free will, we cannot do so. Words have to be arranged to form the sentences. Writing involves encoding of a message of some kind, that if we translate our thoughts into language. Now, if we want to define what is writing skill, we can say that language is a storehouse of knowledge having many dimensions of production and reception, so a standard system is needed to record the language in coded form. Writing is a form of encoded symbols in the form of print or impression. It is a productive skill in the written mode. Writing skill provides a learner with physical evidence of his achievements, and he can measure his improvement, as well as others can also just measure his capability in terms of his writing skills. In writing, symbols are used to represent words and expressions. It helps to consolidate the grasp of vocab and structure and complements the other language skills. To define writing skills, we can easily say that writing skills are specific abilities which enable persons to state their desires, put their thoughts and actions into words in a meaningful form, and to interact with the message. Now, various writers and critics and researchers, they have defined writing and writing skills in their own way. Let us go through some of the definitions given by them. Lado points out, writing is a graphic representation of a language, picture or symbols do not constitute writing unless they form a system representing the units of language, and those patterns can be grasped by the reader. Unquote. Sampson says, writing is a system for representing utterances of a spoken language by means of permanent visible marks. Unquote. Bloomfield observes that writing is not language but merely a way of recording language by means of visible marks. Unquote. So, on the basis of these definitions, we can say that writing skills are really important for our communication. Good writing skills allow you to communicate your message with clarity, with ease, and with comfort. The communication takes place to a far larger audience than face-to-face or telephone conversation. On telephone, you can talk one with 2 or 3 persons. On just face-to-face, you can address an audience of 1,000 people or 100 or more than 1,000 people. But through written communication, you can reach to millions and millions of people, and that too for ages to come. It depends upon your writing skills, whether your text is going to survive for how many years, whether the universality element is there or not. Now, writing is one thing, and having the writing skill is another thing. Writing is an outcome of a writing skill, which refers to the writer's linguistic ability in making use of the mechanics of writing. Writing is permanent, but writing skill is transitory. If today I am not possessing a good writing skill, it doesn't mean that in future I won't be able to. I can nurture it, I can practice, I can gain, I can learn. The use of writing skill differs according to the mental ability and language proficiency of the writer. Writing skill is not static, rather it is dynamic. We can understand it with 2 examples. Like Jeremy Bentham, the father of English law as he is usually called. During his earlier years, he wrote clearly and very well. But as the years went by, he grew older. He gradually lost his sense of style until his later works became most difficult to read. They became obscure. But in the case, if you take otherwise a different case altogether of Shakespeare, William Shakespeare, the great writer, the great dramatist, the great poet, you see, his later works are mostly comedy and matured plays enriched with style and theme, and his writing style is more praised in his mature works rather in his early works. So that way, writing style is it is dynamic that way. It includes a number of sub-skills also, like it has mechanics. Mechanics means handwriting, spelling, punctuation, all these things matter a lot. In the computer age, handwriting is one thing that doesn't matter much because people now used to write directly on computer. But if you are not writing on computer, you are writing on a paper and using a pen, and your writing is not legible, then what will happen? Howsoever good you may be, but people cannot read you, so it's all useless. So mechanics is important. If you have used wrong spellings, then you may create havoc with that. With certain words are there that just the change of one syllable, then the whole meaning changes. Punctuation again creates or changes the meaning altogether. We will discuss it later on how. Word selection. We must have a good vocabulary, control over words, having good knowledge of vocab will make us a good writer. We should use idioms to make it more interesting. Tone of writing, not only speaking, but there is a tone of writing also. So we should be aware of that. Then organization, where the paragraph should come to an end, where we should start a new idea. The topic we are discussing, how many points it should have, and how we can support the topic, whether cohesion is there, unity is there, or the units are well specified or not. Then comes syntax. What is syntax? The sentence structure, sentence boundaries, and the stylistics. Grammar we all know that rules of verbs, agreement, articles, pronoun, etc. they all form grammar. And while writing a good piece of writing, grammatically it should be correct. While speaking, person may take liberty that he is not using proper grammar. If he is just talking in the informal way, that can be tackled. But while writing, because it is in black and white, your grammar should be perfect. Content, how relevant it is, whether it is clear or not. So the clarity and relevance of the content is important. Originality, that plagiarism should not be there. Logic, whether it is logical, it just convinces the other person or not. All these things are important as far as your piece of writing is concerned. The writing process is also important. How do you write that? Now, whenever you are in your class as a teacher and you are teaching your students how to write, most of these students, they are very keen. They come to your class just to know, ma'am, I understand, but I cannot express that. I cannot write. That's why I cannot get good marks. So let us know how to learn writing process. So writing skills, they help the learners gain independence, comprehensibility, fluency and creativity in writing. Creativity is something very, very important. One must be creative, but how can a person be creative if he has no control over writing skills? So activating prior knowledge is one very important thing. It is one method in which teachers can assist ESL students before they even begin writing. Several strategies can be used to accomplish this, including graphic organizations, cooperative learning, read aloud, and group discussions. Then vocabulary preview. Previewing vocabulary is an effective tool when asking an ESL student to attempt any genre of writing. Second language writers have a vastly different linguistic base than native English speakers who can instinctively manipulate the language. Instructors should also allow students to actively elaborate on word meanings, like physically acting out a word, as well as teacher-led explanations are there. Now, writing process. There are 5 steps. I told you, pre-writing, that is one, that brainstorming ideas you must have, organize your topic in a better way. Then there should be drafting. Drafting is not the exact piece of writing that you will display. It is drafting that you can have your points at one place, or the logical sequence of the points, that which point will come after which point. So create a rough copy of your writing, create a rough draft, then revise it and improve your writing. Whatever you feel that this is not the apt place for this thought, or this is not the apt vocab apt word for this particular thought that I want to create. So you can just change it. So in the third step, you can revise. Then you can edit also, proofread your work. Somewhere you must not have left something, or somewhere the spellings are wrong, or something is just not sounding logical, so you can edit it, and finally you can create a final clean copy to publish it so that it can go in front of the readers. You can share your writing this way. Now let us talk about types of writing systems. One is limited writing system and another is full writing system. LWS and FWS. In limited writing system, drawing is the major tool of the limited writing system. This could be in the form of pictography or ideography. Cuneiform writing developed by Mesopotamians and hieroglyphic writing by the Egyptians is good illustrative examples of LWS. We can also take one more example, that in the caves in India like Ajanta and Ellora caves, they have also described through pictures, they have written something, so that can also come in the limited writing system example. Now another one is full writing system that makes use of alphabets and not of pictures. Unlike a pictographic system, FWS conveys no meaning to the reader who does not have knowledge of the underlying language. Suppose a very good writer of French language has written something very beautifully, but if I, the reader, do not know anything about the alphabets of the French writing language, then it's of no use to me. Now there are the barriers to effective writing. What are they? To name a few, disregard for conventional rules. It means that the rules of the standard writing system are disregarded. The ensuing writing would not be that effective in that case. And when we say misappropriation of rules, we say, feel or mean that when orthographic rules are misapplied, effective writing is hindered. For example, the addition of S to the singular form of several words in English transforms them to the plural form. But the application of this rule to such words as sheep, furniture, aircraft, etc. will be inappropriate. So whenever we know that rules, he go, no, he goes. So we understand this thing. But when we use the same rule on certain objects where we are not supposed to, then the writing becomes ineffective. Then there are certain bad writing habits. When one usually writes illegibly, illogically or haphazardly, the text would not be optimally presented. So writing should be legible. Non-standardization of the writing system means that we are not putting up a proper standard of writing and the generating an ideal text will not be fulfilled. If opposition to change, like a writer refuses to go along with approved changes. How? Suppose we used to use abbreviations, like if I say doctor, I can write DR dot, whether the D should be capital or not, whether the dot should be there or not, the abbreviation should carry along the dots or not. We keep on changing in these things, and we are supposed to follow those changes which are there in the writing system. So it may become otherwise isolated and consequently violate current norms. Now we have some translated writing. This is the biggest challenge for teachers working with ELLs, is the translated writing. What is it? This occurs when English language learners, they develop their ideas in their native language and then they try to translate them into English. The translation cannot translate the feeling. Translation cannot so faithfully translate the thoughts. Even if they don't write this native language text down, they are thinking in native language first. When this happens, then also the writing is full of inaccurate verb tenses and unintelligible sentences. The chaotic structure and grammar make the writing difficult to understand. Now, if you want to enhance your writing style, you want to make your writing style effective, then take care of basic factors like legibility. Legibility is the yardstick of text appeal. It is yardstick that whether handwritten or typewritten or text should be legible. A successful writer always aims at the highest level of legibility in order to be appealing. That's why when we didn't have computers and typewriters, the stress in schools were given mostly on your handwriting. Then clarity. The clarity of a text determines its acceptability. When a text is written in simple and logical language, it is easy to understand and acceptable to most of the readers. Then use of specific norms like orthography makes use of specific conventions which its users are supposed to be conversant with. It is therefore the responsibility of an effective writer to use such conventions appropriately. The use of abbreviations such as EG, for example, that means, or ETC, like etc., and so on and so forth, is commonplace in modern writing. Now, how can you use technology for the benefit of being an effective writer? Technology here appears as a tool, as a technological tool, we can say, that really helps us in becoming a good writer. For writing, without having to worry about handwriting or spelling mistakes, we can have just spell check and just write the correct spellings. This technique hones their vocabulary skills because instantly you get the meaning and gives them an opportunity to receive written feedback also. Another method among many is using online discussion. With this approach, students can communicate with one another as well as with the teachers. They can receive peer feedback, they can practice conversational skills, all the while putting complete thoughts together in the form of typed sentences. Peer feedback is one of the most influential methods of becoming a proficient writer of English. Using these technological tools can provide that much needed opportunity. Now, what are the challenges faced by learners who are learning the writing skill? Writing is a conscious, deliberate and planned activity. It is not that by birth you are a good writer. You become conscious, okay, I am supposed to learn how to write good. Or it's a deliberate effect. Yes, I will learn how to write good. Or it's a planned activity that you join some courses, go there, learn how to be a good writer. A monoliterate is a person who can read and write in one language. And biliterate is a person who can read and write in more than one languages. A literate person in a language can convey his inner speech through written mode. That is to say that one may be literate in one language and illiterate in another language. To become a literate in another language, he must learn the written form of that language. Suppose, for example, I am literate in Hindi because I can read and write both. I am literate in English because equally good I am in speaking, writing and understanding English. But when it comes to French, then what happens? Maybe I can understand a little form of French, just that I can understand the meaning. But when it comes to writing, I am an illiterate person altogether. So, in that respect, I cannot call myself literate. I am literate in one language, but another. So, one must, in whatsoever language you are dealing with, if you are a second language learner, you must try to be a good writer, learn how to write well in that particular language in order to call a proper literate person in the second language. For learning written mode of second language, in addition to L1, one requires an additional ability and time. For learning writing of L1, one need not learn words and their meaning, but their coherence. One can convert his inner speech into writing without any kind of hindrance if he has literacy skill in L1 to correlate the sounds with graphemes and to sequence the graphemes into words, words into sentences, and cohering the sentences with meaning and ability to organize them in a readable manner. Now, what are the various problems that writers or rather new writers encounter? English language learners have a limited vocabulary. They repeat the same words and phrases again and again. Content is restricted to known vocabulary. They are reluctant to use invented spelling, and content is restricted to the words they know how to spell. Verb tenses are inaccurate. ELLs will usually write in the present tense. The chaotic structure and grammar of a student's composition make their writing difficult to understand. When they try to decorate it, put too many words, too many figure of speeches, then it becomes obscure. When ELLs, they read their writing aloud, they have no sense of what sounds right and what doesn't. They may have little experience with creative writing to bring from their native language. Now, how to start writing? When one plans to write, he should be aware of LSR as well: listening, speaking, and reading. Then he should listen that language first. Try to speak a few words or a few sentences. Then comes reading simple books to understand the pattern and grammar of that very particular language. And then comes the right time for writing. Sentence is the base of an article. So ELLs, they should begin the writing with sentences. For example, translation, sentence pattern exchange, text shortening, and rewriting. First, you can just read a passage and summarize it in your own way. Just see, you have ideas, you know what to write, you know how to write, and then while summarizing, you just develop the habit of putting your thoughts into written form. So it helps to understand the text and write compositions. It can promote the learner's ability to condense and to use the language freely. As far as mechanics of writing are concerned, in the process of writing, mechanics are involved, like ability to shape the letters, that is known as graphics, knowledge of right combination of letters, like spelling, skill of cohering words, like sentences, skill of composing sentences, that is discourse, and control over pronunciation, like stop, semicolon, colon, comma, etc. An English professor wrote the words, I quote, "A woman without her man is nothing" on the chalkboard, and asked his students to punctuate it correctly. All the males in the class, they wrote, "A woman, comma, without her man is nothing." All the females in the class, they wrote, "A woman, colon, without her man is nothing." So this just the change of punctuation changed the whole concept, changed the whole meaning, changed the set of thinking. So this way you must understand punctuation is very, very important. In the same way, how vocabulary is important. You know, he said, usne kaha. I know the word this kaha can be expressed in said. But kya kaha, kab kaha, kaise kaha, who said, why said, at what time, that requires several words for said, like muttered, roared, howled, yelled, whispered, barked. If said in a low voice, we can say whispered. If say in a shouting, if say mumbled, screamed, spluttered, squealed, bellowed, these are all words for said. So where to use which word, unless and until you have control over vocabulary, unless and until you learn that vocabulary, you won't be able to express yourself. Now, cohesion in writing is very, very important. Every good writer must take care very seriously whether this element is there in writing style or not. Cohesion from the Latin word it comes that means sticking together. It is a term in functional grammar that relates to how text like words and sentences, they are held together lexically and grammatically as a whole to give a complete meaning. A text that lacks cohesion will be fragmented. It will be disjointed. It will give not a better sense. The following examples can make it clear to illustrate how important the cohesion or coherence is. Mummy beat Shashwat. Shashwat had come home late. This is a coherent sentence but not cohesive. Why? Because there is a meaning in it but the construction is not that proper. Mummy beat Shashwat because he had come home late. This because when it is added, it explains the sense and it is cohesive as well as coherent. Then Mummy beat Shashwat because America is a developed country. Now this because previously that was just giving all the sense is useless over here because these two sentences he cannot connect. So it is cohesive again but not coherent. So Mummy beat Shashwat. America is a developed country. It is neither cohesive nor coherent. So just you can understand the same words, same things you cannot have unless and until you understand how to put cohesion in writing. So for writing accurately, you must take care of sub-skills like spelling correctly, forming letters correctly, writing legibly, punctuating correctly, using correct layouts, choosing the right vocab, using grammar correctly, joining sentences in the right way, using paragraphs also, where to end, where to start. And the most important thing, just how to have the relationship between the verb and the rest of the sentence. Relationship of verb with the rest of the sentence. So this figure tells you all the C's that are important for this one W, that is writing. Consistent, concise, coherent, correct, clear, complete and creative. That is the checklist you are supposed to have for your written piece. Testing the learner's writing skills and identifying the errors and the mistakes found in writing of the student is the sole criteria for testing it. Error analysis is one thing that teachers look forward to. Through identifying the areas of errors, the areas where more concentration needed to be focused by both the teacher and the learners can be realized and relevant remedies can be suggested by which the difficulties and problems can be eliminated. So these are the remedies that to prevent the agreemental problems, the relationship between words should be taught and the relationship between L1 and L2 should be established. Errors, how to eliminate should be taken care of, and practice makes the man perfect. It applies to writing also. So these are the remedies and where you are supposed to take care. Keep on writing, keep on expressing and share your writing with others. Try to find the problems, try to avoid those problems in the next piece of writing and enjoy being a writer. Thank you for visiting EPG Pathshala.